In the 90s, teenagers didn't get evaluated for things like depression. But if I look back, then I'm pretty sure I was depressed for part of my childhood, some of my teenage years, and part of my 20s. Although in my 20s, I was aware that I was depressed. Despite that, I decided right from the start that I hated alcohol and drugs were bad. I can't even take credit for it because I think I might have had that opinion because I got into sports around the age of 10 with swimming, and then I discovered track and field at age 14. My thinking was very black and white back then. So, since I was an athlete, I thought I shouldn't be attracted to drugs and alcohol because that goes against my identity as an athlete. There were also these dorky public service announcements on TV telling people not to take drugs, and I think I absorbed some of this message somehow. I can also honestly say that I was never ever offered drugs in my life, and that's pure luck. Or maybe I was approached at some point, but I was too dumb to have realized that I was really being offered drugs. Anyway, all that is just to say that I believe I mostly had an alcohol and drug-free existence because of luck. I didn't have many friends in high school, but I was lucky to have the right few. I was also lucky that the only situation where I was offered alcohol was when my dad would put a shooter of wine in front of me during Christmas dinner, and of course, being somewhat rebellious towards my parents, I refused to drink it. Well, the author of today's book had a bit of a different experience. And if you're sitting there thinking my existence hasn't exactly been alcohol-free, then you're not alone. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you would like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running, or maybe inspire you to try something new. My name is Liz, and with my co-host Alan, we're going to talk with author Allie Bailey about her book, There Is No Wall, which, by the way, just came out February 1st of this year.
And you're all going to love it. There Is No Wall is ultrarunner Allie Bailey's brutally honest and sometimes shocking account of alcoholism, depression, and severe mental breakdown, which almost cost her life. Told with disarming vulnerability, heartbreaking depths of feeling, and dark humor, this isn't a story about how running saved her. She was already running and at the height of her struggles, sometimes even winning 100-mile-plus races. But somewhere between the darkest excesses of the music industry and the simple beauty of the ultrarunning scene, Allie found space to listen and learn and put into practice techniques that would go on to save her life and change it for the better. There Is No Wall is a story about how doing something you love can lead you to achieve the things you never thought possible. Running won't save you, but it might just buy you the time to save yourself. Let me tell you a little bit about Allie. Allie, if you don't know Allie, probably if you're listening to this from the UK, you go, well, why are you bothering to tell us? We know all about her, but there's a lot of North Americans maybe who are not so familiar. Allie Bailey is an ultra runner, coach, speaker, and podcaster who has run in some of the most extreme places in the world. She's the first woman to run 100 miles across the frozen lake of, what's this place in Mongolia?
Lake Kozgol. Lake Kozgol.
I am so happy that I wasn't
you got
the
me on
one
a pronunciation, Liz. Well done.
I didn't even get you because I don't know how to pronounce it. Usually it's me mispronouncing stuff that you know exactly how to pronounce, but for some reason I'm the one saying it.
Back to the bio. And to run the full length of the Panama Canal. She's crossed the inhospitable Namib Desert 3 times, run the length of the Outer Hebrides, and completed a 1,000-plus mile off-road version of the classic Land's End to John O'Groats route, or as the English call it, Le Jog, in just 30 days. Allie has finished over 200 marathons and ultramarathons all over the world. But the most remarkable thing about all of these achievements is that she accomplished most of them while battling depression and alcoholism. Although running ultimately became the vehicle that helped Allie buy time to recover from a number of severe mental health breakdowns, it did not save her life. In fact, there were times when it made her battle all the more difficult. And we're going to hear about that. After a seismic mental health crisis in 2021, Allie finally admitted to herself and those around her that she was an alcoholic and started her recovery. She left behind a dream career with major record labels and adventure companies and now works as a coach with a broad range of runners and endurance athletes, helping them to unlock their full potential. In 2022, she was named as one of the most inspiring female adventurers in the UK by The Guardian, and she has appeared on numerous mainstream TV programs, including The One Show and Lorraine. She lives in Yorkshire with her rescue dog, Pickle. Welcome, Allie.
She sounds amazing. Doesn't she sound great?
She sounds fantastic. I hope she resembles you.
Yeah. I wonder who could. I love listening to that because I didn't write that. So I'm like, that's actually quite good. And then you're like, oh, I did do those things. It's not just rubbish.
See, we can big you up.
You did all of those things.
Because we're doing your bio, we can big you up. So if we said, well, introduce yourself, Ali, you'd say, oh, I've done a bit of running and stuff. But we can give you the...
It's like, you know me. That is literally what I would do.
The full Shazam.
That's what I do. Because I think there's a fine line between psychopathic narcissist and like actually saying what you've done. Do you know what I mean? That's one of the problems of writing a book about yourself is like, you're like, am I a narcissist?
You don't want to start believing your own publicity. Yeah.
And I think also like writing must be difficult because it's sort of like you don't know what tone the person is reading it in their head, you know, because like sometimes it's just a tone of voice that changes kind of, I guess, you know, but the narcissism into just plain old listing off what you actually did and make it sound narcissistic.
I think the key to not being a narcissist is thinking, am I a narcissist? And if you think that, you're not one. So I think it's like thinking, am I a psychopath? No, you're not one. If you think you're a psychopath.
Donald Trump probably never thinks that. No, it shouldn't get political.
He doesn't even know how to spell it. So let's allegedly.
Okay, so your book, it's pretty frank and hard hitting. I would say, you know, if somebody asked me to write a book like that about myself, you know, in terms of talking about, I guess, all your secrets, I don't think I would be able to do it. So why did you decide to sort of share all of this with the world in terms of writing the books? And did you have any worries or doubts about going ahead and publishing it?
Well, why did I write it? So I wrote it because in 20, whenever it was, I can't even remember. I'm very bad with dates.
That's okay.
Nearly 3 years ago, I had like the breakdown that like was the rock bottom, skid on your face, grit in your eye, rock bottom, right? And I was like so ill for so long, for like maybe 10 weeks. I couldn't function as a human being. I had to be looked after by my mum. I was 40 years old and I was like having to be under watch to make sure I didn't like do anything silly. And I just was trying to grasp at something that, or like a film or like a book or like someone to talk to that understood where I was coming from. But everything I've sort of grabbed hold of slid through my hands, and I was like, but I can't identify with that. I can't identify with that, and it was like almost like a desperate state. So I'd sort of started writing a book already a while ago, and but it was like 3 or 4 years before this. I'd like started piecing together bits of blogs and like writing because it made me feel better. But with those blogs, they were so visceral and so awful that I just hid them in parts of the internet that no one could find. Look, I didn't go, hey everyone, look at my blog about how awful I feel. I hid it. I put it somewhere else, and I never told anyone about it. And then when I got super, super sick, as I started to get better, I was like, well, maybe if I wrote this stuff down, it would make me feel better. Spoiler alert, didn't. And but also it would give other people hope, because I just want to be able to help other people. Like if anything can come out of these horrendous situations, it's having some sort of empathy and understanding for mental health and people's various battles, which are never the same. But I felt like if I could write down how I felt, people that might be in a similar situation, might be hiding things or not being honest about things, would see it's okay to be honest. It's okay to say I need some help. It's okay to say I'm not very well. It's okay to say I've done terrible things, or things that are terrible in the eyes of society. Nothing bad will happen and you feel a lot better. So that's why I did it. And I was scared, and I was like, what will people think? But I got to that point where I don't actually care what people think, because the most important thing is what I think. So that's why I did it, basically.
It's funny how like to be able to do those things, you almost always have to hit rock bottom, you know, like to admit that you need help. And what was it about the books that you did try and read that just didn't help?
So like I love authors like Catherine Gray, Bryony Gordon. They've written sober books. I mean, when I hit rock bottom, I was like drinking I'd been drinking since the age of 14, and I was now 40 years old. And I was at that point drinking 3 or 4 bottles of wine a day. And so I'd realized a long time before I hit the bottom of the rocks with the rocks, that rocky bottom bit, that I was drinking too much years before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd read various books. Like A Million Little Pieces is one of my favorite books. That's about an addict. And but I was like, well, I'm not that bad. I'm definitely not that bad. Oh yeah, I'm not on crack
Mm-hmm.
yet, so I'm not that bad. Or I'm not,
Yeah, okay.
I'm not, I haven't lost everything. I'm not that bad. I started reading that Bryony Gordon book, Glorious Rock Bottom, and it was too close to home for me. And I had to put it down because I was like, that's me. And the same with Catherine Gray. But because they were recovered and they seemed to have these clean lives,
Mm-hmm.
that it was like, then I got better. I was like, but I don't understand how this is going to happen for me. And I think that I'd got a little bit of a presence on the internet with my running. And I'd kind of been going, hey, look, running's really good. I have bad mental health, but I go running and running's really good for my mental health. And I'd come to that realization that actually running hadn't saved me at all. And it wasn't saving me at all. And there I was on the internet spouting off to people, running's really good for your mental health. It'll make you better. But it hadn't. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
people are going to find out. They're going to find out that it hasn't made me better. And then I'm going to put it somewhere. I need to put it somewhere. I need to like say to people, yes, it's a really great thing to do, but it isn't going to cure you of being depressed or being an addict or any of the other things. You have to cure yourself. And I felt like that was the only thing I could take from it, from that horrendous situation. Was I'm going to get better, but running's not going to make me better. I'm going to get better myself, and I'm going to use running as a vehicle to test all of these coping strategies that I'm going to try and employ. And that's what I did. And that's what I continue to do to this day. And if it wasn't for that breakdown, if it wasn't for everything I'd learned, if it wasn't for writing that book, I wouldn't be sitting here coaching these people, being like, I can help you with this, because I wouldn't have that experience. So I think that's another reason.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. I'm actually really interested in part of your book before we get to or I don't know, I guess maybe we should ask you about how you started drinking first. But I feel like asking you about, you had this dream career. And I've had the experience of getting a job that I really wanted and then realizing that that's like it wasn't I don't know, like I was disillusioned, like I didn't really like I wasn't happy there. Luckily the job that I got had an end date because it was like a work term during my degree.
Mm-hmm.
And but you got a job and it seems like it seems like it maybe wasn't a good environment for you, but then you did end up getting out of the music industry because it wasn't for you. But I'm wondering, like, was the dream job, was there any time where it actually was the dream job that you thought it was because you got this job that you really wanted? You worked so hard to get this job. Like you applied, I don't remember.
Oh,
So
Liz,
many.
it was the dream when I was drunk.
Ah, I
Absolute
see.
dream.
Okay.
Like, of
Okay.
course it was. Like, like the do say in the book, there was parts of it, there were times of it when I was like, this is amazing. Like, I'm literally hanging out with Dave Grohl. He's got a pet name for me. This is amazing. But I was drunk at that point in time. Luckily enough, I could remember that bit, but there's lots I can't remember.
Mm,
And whenever it started to go, whenever that like, this isn't very good, this isn't cool. Like, it's a very, very difficult place to work, the music industry, because it is a very, very high pressure, very secretive environment. Things go on in that industry that don't go on, and film, all the creative industries that don't go on anywhere else. And the way they control you and stop you from saying anything is to tell you that you're lucky, or that no one will believe you, right? And that
mm,
loads of people want your job. So when things didn't go the way I wanted them to go, the best thing I could do was to pour fun juice on it and just get drunk. Because once you were drunk,
mm,
everything was fun, wasn't it? And you could
mhm,
ignore it, and everybody was out of control because everybody was doing the same thing, except everybody wasn't, or were they? I don't know. I was drunk. So if you're drunk, then you can't take responsibility, can you? So
mhm,
I think that at the start, when I first got that job, yes, it was like the dream. It was amazing. Like, I was hanging around with pop stars. But eventually, you do get to the point where you're like, pop stars are just normal people who have got the same problems as everybody else and are just as unhappy, if not more unhappy, as everybody else. I can count the amount of happy pop stars I've met on one hand. So, like, yeah, it
yeah.
was the dream for like maybe 4 or 5 months. And then it wasn't. I was not cut out for that industry. I know people that work in that industry still, who I knew when I worked there. They're cut out for it. I was not cut out for it. I was extremely vulnerable. I was ill. I was depressed. I wasn't coping well with my own brain. I'd never got any help for that, or the help that I tried to get had not worked. And I kept thinking that something external would make me happy, or something external would change the situation. And I think even now in 2024, people think that external things will help their situation or make them happy. Jobs, winning races, entering races, running 100 miles, running 50 miles, running 25 miles, a new bike, a new girlfriend, a new boyfriend, a new dog, a new house, a new car. But it doesn't make you happy. It's just stuff. And you don't realize that, I think, until you've rinsed through all the things and all the stuff and all the experiences. Earlier today, I was going through some cupboards and I found a box, and that box was all the wristbands and accessible areas passes from that time, 12 years.
Wow.
There are thousands of them, right?
Wow.
Incredible pieces of memorabilia, like passes for festivals, for shows, for just, and I just was kind of like, what the actual fuck? Like, you have led a life, Allie, but I was so drunk for the majority of those shows, I don't remember them. And they meant nothing to me because I was just trying to get through them from A to B. But to most people, any music fan, if I poured that out on the floor in front of them, they would wet themselves, because it's like, you saw Eminem in a room with 40 other people. Oh my God, you stood side the stage of Glastonbury. Oh my God, you've done this, you've done that. And it's like, but for me, the depression, just over the overwhelming feelings of panic and fear, because that's what I felt at the time while I was going through that. That's really sad.
It sure is.
Yeah, Alan's a music fan, so
yeah, I'll be one of the people wetting myself looking at the box.
You would probably love to see that box.
Oh, the box is so cool, and I'm like, I need to sort this out, and I really want to put them somewhere where I can see them, but there's literally thousands of them, so it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I'll just put it all back in the box. Pandora's box, I'll call it.
Auction it on eBay.
No.
Let me ask you what prompted the title of your book, of the book. So there is no wall. The wall is a standard, marathon running or endurance running thing. So there is no wall. So what prompted that?
When I was getting better, I did a lot of work on my brain and a lot of work. So basically, so that everybody could benefit with just taking a minute to think about is the fact that your mind creates everything. So from the clothes you're wearing to the car you drive to the color of the walls in your house, you created that with your mind. You made a choice. You decided. So your mind is so powerful. And I think that with running, a lot of people train their bodies, but they just ignore the brain bit. They ignore them, even though it's like you can be as fit as a fiddle. But if your mind's not there, if you don't believe that you can do this, if you don't believe that you've done the work, if you don't believe that it's possible, then you ain't going to get anywhere, because thoughts become results at the end of the day. So the wall is something that has been created by some marketing person somewhere to obviously describe that feeling where you run out of energy and you're like, oh my God, I can't finish this, I'm going to die. Now, as runners, we know that is momentary, right? Might last a minute, might last 30 seconds, might last 4 minutes. If you're running like a real big boy race, it might last an hour. But if you generally, if you eat something, get some sugar down you, get some carbohydrate, you get a gel down you can crack on. But that's not what the industry doesn't want you to know. That they want you to think there is a wall, you will hit it, and the only way to stop yourself from hitting it is to buy things that they will give you, whether they're shoes or gels or clothes or magazines or books or coaching or whatever it is. Years ago at the National Running Show, somebody asked me while I was on stage, what happens when I hit the wall? And that was a moment for me where I was like, what are you talking about? Why are you saying that? Like, you're setting yourself up for failure already. And that was when I was drinking. That was in 2017, back when I was still drinking. I was really, really sick, but I managed to go, what are you talking? I managed to register that this idea of the wall was absolutely ridiculous, even though I was surrounded by this wall that was like, oh, I can't go out without drinking. I can't talk to anybody without having had a drink. I was depressed. I was miserable. I was an addict. I was running these races and trying to because I thought that every time I ran a further distance or I won a race, something would happen and I would be better, or I'd feel better, or be happier. That is all the same as they're thinking there's a wall, thinking that these things make you happy, thinking that these thoughts, these societal values are fact. I think you should question everything. You should question everything you think, whether because most thoughts are just neutral words that go in and out of your brain. They're not good, they're not bad, they're not positive, they're not negative. They're just thoughts. And you know, you don't believe everything you think. Like if you believed everything you thought, we'd be mad. So I wanted to put something on the front. You know, there's a picture of me smoking a cigarette on the cover of the book because I really wanted people to pick up this book and be like, whoa, there's somebody smoking a cigarette on the front of the book about running. I mean, it's not really about running, but it is a lot about running.
Well, there's a lot of running in it.
Yeah, the point is, don't judge this don't judge this book by its cover. Don't judge runners by their covers. Don't judge people by what you think they are, what society thinks they are, because underneath there is a lot going on with people. And I wanted to, you know, I want this book to be a positive thing, but positive in that people can take something from it. It's helpful. I think it is helpful because at the end it gets helpful. Spoiler, guys, it gets helpful. But yeah, that's where the title came from. And I think ultimately it's about your brain. It's about like, look, people will tell you that people will tell you things are not possible. People will tell you that you're capable of things. People will tell you that you have to behave a certain way, or you have to do a certain thing, or you can't be a smoker and a runner. You can't be a drinker and a runner. You can't be a this and a runner or that and a runner. You don't have time to train for this. None of that is true. Like none of it is. It's about questioning everything and not asking what's positive, what's negative, but asking what's helpful.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's there's always reasons why you can't do something.
Our brains are built to protect us. They're built to conserve energy and avoid pain and seek pleasure. So your brain's always going to tell you not to do something that involves exercise, always. But it's about switching on your prefrontal cortex and going, actually, do you know what? Thanks so much for trying to protect me, but I don't really need protection right now. So, you know, I feel like I'm doing book spoilers. I feel like no one's going to read it now because they kind of know like what happens at the end. But like, it took me a really long time.
Listening to you talk, Ali, I'm going, oh, wow, this is a fantastic book. I need to read this. Hang on. I just read it last week.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say the podcast is better than the book.
No, I think
no, he's saying
I think people will be excited to read it listening to you talk.
Yeah, I think so too. I guess like maybe we should start at the beginning. How did drinking ever start for you? Because 14 is so young.
As I say, what age did you start drinking? But you didn't, did you? Alan, when did you start drinking?
I didn't. Well, actually, no.
16.
I guess you could count the shooters my dad used to put in front of me. Like he had no age limit. I think I was probably 5 when that started, and I hated them every time.
We used to all sneak into the pub as 16-year-olds and all sit in the corner, and the one who had the most facial hair would go and order the drinks. You know, it started like that. And probably out of the eight guys who were doing that, I would guess probably at least 2 of them went on to have serious problems with alcohol.
So when you think about it, right, alcohol's mental. There is literally no good things about alcohol. There's none. The only good thing about alcohol that it's useful for is as a antiseptic, but it's not even that useful for that because it kills good bacteria and bad bacteria. So actually, it just kills everything. It's a poison, right? So I grew up in the 80s, and in the 80s, people would just get drunk all the time because that's what people did, especially working class people. It was cheap, it was easy, and everyone did it. So my parents used to drink a lot. I don't want to paint them in a bad light because they weren't bad people. They were great people, but there was always alcohol every night in our house. Beer. My dad used to make his own beer. There was wine. There was always parties, and the major message that I got from this was, in order to have fun, you need to have alcohol. There was always alcohol. There was never as much fun as when people were drunk. We were allowed to start drinking about 14, me and my 2 little brothers, because my mum was like, well, if you're doing it here, then you're not doing it on the street, are you? And it's like, you're doing it here and on the street. So it was, and then I was like, hang on a minute. When I have that feeling in me, where I don't feel like I belong here and that I can't talk to people and that I feel what I now know is social anxiety, if I drink this, I don't feel that anymore. So I'll just drink this. And also people think I'm funnier, they laugh at me more, and I feel like my dad loves me more. I feel like everyone loves me more. So I'm going to keep doing it. And it's completely socially acceptable. In fact, alcohol is the only drug where people make you feel weird for not doing it. They don't make you feel weird for not smoking, and they don't make you feel weird for having decaf coffee, and they don't make you feel weird for not taking heroin. They're not like, oh, why don't you have a toot on the crack pipe? Just a little toot. Go on. Oh, come on. It's not going to hurt you. Do they? Quite the opposite.
No.
But with alcohol, if you're like, no, thank you, people are like, what? Why aren't you drinking? And it's like, why are you drinking? It's bonkers. And for years, like 20 odd years, 30 years maybe, I was that person that was like, why aren't you drinking? Because it's a mirror, isn't it? It holds a mirror up, a behavior mirror. So that's how it started. It started when I was at school, and then it escalated. And I left home at 17 to go to university. I very what I call in the book, I was very grown up, and I ran away in the most grown up way I possibly could to go to university. But I ran away from home. Like, I don't want a part of this. And then there was no one to watch me, so I could do what I wanted. And I just was paralytic all the time. But people seemed to like me more when I was drunk. Or that's the story I told myself. That was my motivated bias. That was my cognitive bias. It's like, people like you more. It's like, Ali, you don't know what people think because, one, you can't tell what fucking people think. And two, you're hammered. So you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And that's how it continued for my entire adult life. And I went through maybe 4 or 5 dry periods, dry January here and there, like, oh, I'm going to train for a marathon. Oh, I've got a new boyfriend who, like, I need to pretend I'm, like, not weird. And I was never falling around during the day drunk. I was never drinking bottles of vodka under my desk at work. I was just a normal person.
Yeah.
But I was the person that people thought they went for a drink with, but I was going for a drink with everybody. Like, I just sweep through friendship groups. 9 o'clock, I'd meet this person. 10 o'clock, I'd meet the next person. 11 o'clock, I'd meet so-and-so. 12 o'clock, my mate gets off a shift at the hospital, so I'll go and meet him. So actually, I'd go out for like 5 drinks when people thought I was going out for 1 drink with them. It was bonkers.
I do see what you mean by, like, that when you're not drinking. And yeah, I guess, like, my reaction to that was, I just, like, I think, well, yeah, I definitely had a lot of social anxiety when I was growing up, but I just avoided everyone. And Alan is like, yeah, I can see you doing that. And then when I got my first job, like, for sure, we were all kind of young, just out of high school. And so that was the thing, like, people would be like, oh, we're going out tonight. You want to go out? And I would always, like, find some kind of BS excuse not to go out, because, like, I knew what it was. It was just drinking. I would feel out of place because I'm not drinking. People would keep trying to ask me why I'm not drinking. I didn't really have a reason. I just didn't want to drink. So I would just avoid the whole thing.
Don't you think that's awful?
It is pretty awful.
It's just because I'm not doing something. Why are you attacking me because I'm not doing something?
Yeah, why can't I just be there and, like, be with you guys and observe, and, I don't know, make sure that you get home safe? I could be the designated driver, but I didn't drive back then, so I wasn't useful, Now I'm useful because I could be the designated driver. I actually have a license and everything. So,
but even then, like, it's like, I think people should take a moment, because even people listening to this podcast will be like, well, I don't have a problem with alcohol. I can take it or leave it. Me, can you? Can you really? Because if you say I can take it or leave it, the likelihood is you can't. You're choosing to take it because you have to take it, because you feel like in those social environments you have to do it. Or you're so. And I'll say to people, what are the top? And they'll be like, no, I like drinking. And I'm like, okay, what are the top 5 things about drinking? The most common ones I get are, it relaxes me, it makes me sociable, it helps me to wind down at the end of a hard week, I deserve it, and well, otherwise I won't fit all my mates. And I'm like, when you actually look at those reasons, they're terrible reasons. If you have to drink a poison to relax, you need to look at why you can't relax without drinking a poison. If you have to do it to fit in, then you have to look at why you have to do it to fit in. And those are the hard subjects. If I said to you, I don't know, like, off milk, drink me off milk to relax after a hard week at work, you'd be like, I'm not drinking that. It's disgusting. It's poison. It's the same thing, because alcohol doesn't relax you. It's an addictive substance that actually triggers you into wanting more of it. So it's not relaxing you. It's like, I can talk about this for hours, and I can get quite annoying about it. I don't care if people drink or they don't drink. What I care about is if they judge people that don't drink. That's what I care about. You can drink all you want, but do not judge people that don't. Don't ask them why they don't. Just accept they don't. That's it. That's okay.
I think we should all start judging people for not running. I think that
we
would
should
be
all
better.
just stop judging.
I think we should say, why haven't you gone for a run today? What's wrong with
the
you?
only people we're allowed to judge,
come and run with us. We're going for a run. Come and run with us. Oh, goodness me. Let's talk a little bit about running. So
You've
What
run
was
some
it?
really long
Yeah,
distances.
what was it about long distance running? What attracted you to running and then ultimately to ultra running?
So at the beginning, it was a classic old story of a doctor who I'd been people suggested loads of things to make my mental health better, and I tried everything except exercise. And I don't know what the school system was like when you were growing up, but if you weren't very good at something at school, they basically stopped you doing it. And I wasn't very good at PE or any of the netbally type stuff. So they stopped me doing it and put me in the library. So I didn't do any physical
Oh,
exercise from the age of like 12 till like late 20s, because why would I was too busy drinking. And this was a last ditch attempt for me to feel better. And it was about my mental health. And so I ran 1 mile from my flat in East London. And while I was running, I remember thinking, oh, for that like 15 minutes it took me to run that mile, I was like, I didn't think about topping myself once or wanting to die, because I was too busy like just trying to stay upright and do all the things you have to do in your running,
Breathe
like
in, breathe
breathing.
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
breathing. Yeah.
not being hit by a car, not falling over. And I was like, oh. And then for like 20 minutes after, I was like, oh, she's feeling all right. So I kept doing it. And then London Marathon was a big thing. I lived in London. So I was like, I'm going to do
Mhm.
the marathon, just the one
Mhm.
marathon.
It's big. It's big over here too, and
Oh,
we're
it's
really far from
massive.
London. Like there's we have actually Alan has tried to enter the lottery. How many times now, Alan?
Five
At
years,
least
last
five.
5 years in a row,
Yeah.
no
Alan
go.
topped it. One, good for, actually, you're a man. So your good for age might be a bit more of a problem than my good for age.
Good for age doesn't work for
Two,
overseas athletes.
otherwise, you're going to have to bite the bullet and raise some money for charity, mate.
Yeah, that's what
Actually,
I'll have to do.
we have friends that are doing that. But it's
Yeah.
quite a bit you have to raise.
Yeah,
So
it's like 2.5. Well, when I did it, the first London Marathon I did. My mum had been diagnosed with breast cancer, so I raised money for breast cancer care. That was easy because my
yeah.
mum had been diagnosed with it. So everybody was like, "Oh my god, what can we do to help?" I'm like, "Give me some money," and that was the most
To
stressful
this
part of it. Was
charity.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
raising that
Mhm.
money. It was 2.5 grand, and I
Oh
think it's probably
yeah.
more now. But
Wow.
once I'd done that, so I ran London Marathon, right? And that was my first marathon. And I was injured. So I'd read like some magazines and they'd said things like sub 4 hours in them. That's good. So apparently that's a good time. So I was like, right, I'm going to do that then. Totally like plucked it out of the air.
Mm.
And I got injured because I was wearing the wrong shoes and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was an absolute newbie. And I ended up coming in at 4:02.
Mm.
So the high of that race was almost immediately taken away from me by my own brain going, yeah, but you didn't manage to get sub 4. And it's like, I didn't know
Darn
what that meant.
brain.
But I was like, ah. And my whole narrative, my internal narrative is based around the idea that I'm not good enough ever at anything for anyone ever. Right.
Hmm.
The reasons for that are written in the book. And that's one of the reasons I used to drink, because I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear that narrative. So when I did my first marathon, I stopped drinking for 40 days and 40 nights, like some sort of biblical creation. The minute that those stories came back, I was like, give me a beer. Started drinking again. Was like, right, I've got to do it again. So I signed up to do it again. And for like 4 or 5 years, I just did London Marathon. Like I got in on charity places. I always raised the money. And then I started to get a good for age time, which was easy for me,
Oh.
easier, because it was
Mm.
3:45. And I was like, I can do that. So I
Mm.
did. But my sister, who's a lot older than me, was like, I'm going to run a marathon as well. And I was like, no, you're not, because you've got kids and you're not going to be able to do it because you won't be able to train for it. Like, started to panic. I'm not special. My sister's going to run a marathon.
Mhm.
And she was like, I'm going to run a trail marathon. And I'm like, what's a trail marathon? And she was like, it's not on the road. And I'm like, you can't run a marathon not on the road. And she was like, you can. So she signed up to this race down south, where I'm from, this trail marathon. And that was the game changer, because because they didn't care about time, and there was cake and food and stuff, and you
Hmm.
didn't have to eat gel, and you didn't have to drink Lucasade. And it
Oh
was
my
like,
God, yeah.
oh my God, this is
I
amazing.
I love the roads, but I hate gel. Yeah, I
I
see the
hate
attraction.
road running now. I just can't I just hate it. Anyway, it escalated pretty quickly. And once I got into the trail running community, then I got into the ultra running community. I'm like, what's an ultra? Like my eyes were like this, like a manga characters. And I just kept thinking, running's not working. It's not making me any better. But maybe if I do an ultra, it will make me feel better. Maybe if I run 30 miles, it'll make me feel better. Maybe if I run 50K, it'll make me feel better. Maybe if I run 50 miles, I'll feel better. And there we go, up and up we go. You're just pushing that goalpost back, aren't you? Because every time you do it, you're like, oh, that hasn't worked, because it's not going to work, because external things don't work, and other people's validation doesn't work, and there isn't a magic lightning bolt that works. And so it got to the point where I was running like ludicrous amounts of races, like almost like binge running races to try and like make myself feel something.
Yeah,
But
I
but I felt
noticed that
nothing.
you would do an ultra, like a 200-mile race or 200K, and then you would go and, like, I don't know, a few weeks later you were doing another one and
Yep.
then another one, and you do these extra long events, like I guess the one we described in the intro, and which were like days long. And I mean, it's incredible. But you still had a job at that point.
Oh yeah, like I was still working in London, and every
Mm-hmm.
weekend I would leave London and come and do these races,
Oh,
like come and do
okay.
these ultras. And, like, I loved a multi-day because that meant I could run like Saturday, Sunday, and Friday, and just run a weekend. And I would take time off work to go and do it, and like I had the money to do it, sort
Mm-hmm.
of. I mean, I had no money, but I was just spending my money on alcohol and races, and that was it, and travel.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like searching for this like high, or not even a high, that's not the right word. I was searching for this feeling of like being enough. I wasn't very good. I wasn't a very good runner. I was there, like, I wasn't fast. Wasn't
I've
winning
actually
stuff.
got a question here that I wrote down that was going to come up later, but you've covered it now. And actually says there's a 5-year period between 2013 and 2018 where you ran 71 marathons and ultras, and that's more than one a month for a 5-year period. And my question was,
Yeah.
are you chasing something or trying to escape something or trying to prove something? And you just, I guess, kind of explained it.
So I just wanted to feel better, Alan. And I was like, and everyone was like, running will make you feel better. Running is good for your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
No, no, it's not.
And during that time, did you feel like you were leading kind of like a double life? Because
Yeah.
you'd go to this job all week, and did any of your work colleagues know about your running, and did your running colleagues know what you did for a living? Like, or was it almost like just living two separate lives? You'd
So
go to your
my work colleagues just thought I was running a marathon. They were like,
hmm
oh, Ali runs marathons. They don't
hmm
understand.
hmm
Like, people in the real world. I mean, I live in the ultra world, literally. I'm a coach, I'm an author, I write, I run, I coach, I go to
hmm
races, I present, I do a podcast. I live in this world, right? People outside, I forget there's people outside it that don't know what an ultra is, or a marathon. There's lots of people who
Yeah.
are like, how long's a marathon? And you're like, yeah, it's 26.2 miles. Like,
Reality
there's
check
lots of
every
people,
time.
yeah, there's lots of people that only think there's one marathon, and that is London Marathon. So, and that's fine. This is a niche
Yeah.
sport. Let's face it,
Mhm.
right? It's a really niche
Yeah.
sport. But but when I was working for the record labels, they just thought, oh, Ali does running. They didn't understand it, and I didn't talk to them about it because it was like, you won't understand it. And also, I just need to keep my head down and keep my job, basically. And then my running friends, they were like, oh, you're the cool girl that works at a record company. Can you get me into this gig? And I'd be like, okay. So I just get them into gigs. Like, it was two separate lives, but the same person. I felt like I was way more accepted and more alive in the running community than I was in the music community.
hmm
And bits of it seeped in. Like, I started a little running club at Sony, and we go out at lunchtime and stuff like that, but they never really got it. And sometimes I'd come back from a weekend of running and be just like shocked by the way I was like treated at the labels, because I was like, been so used to having a nice time and people just being nice to me, that coming into
hmm
a label meeting on a Monday and having someone literally kick the living shit out of you because you hadn't sold enough records was like a bit of a shocker. So yeah, it was a bit like that, and it was just this chase. But I think part of the fact that I was so high functioning with the alcohol meant that I was extremely resilient. So I was able to physically do this stuff. I was younger then. Like, there was a hangover of backing races into each other that lasted quite a long time. And it's only in the last couple of years that I'm like, no, we don't back races into each other. We're kind to our body. We allow recovery. We allow rest. Rest is just as important as training. Like, you only grow in the rest stage, right?
hmm
So, but I didn't get that. I didn't get it. And sometimes I get athletes now that come to me for coaching, and they're doing 100-mile weeks. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, stop doing that. It's ridiculous.
Does ultra running, I mean, this just occurs to me listening to you talk and listening to quite a few people who do ultra racing. does ultra running attract people who are looking for an answer? I don't know how to phrase it, like crazy people or depressed
Yes.
people or,
Yes.
people who are searching for something really hard, or have a
Yes.
big problem somewhere.
Yes.
Okay.
Why would anyone in their right mind hand over 200 English pounds to run 100 miles from here to here? Why would anyone do that? Like, there's got to be part of you that is special to do that, right? It's mad. It's totally different when you're in London and there's a million people cheering and it's 26 miles and everyone knows what you're doing, it's on telly. When you're on the South Downs in the UK,
Yeah.
or I don't know, wherever
On
in
the Cornwall
Australia,
coast or,
on the Cornwall coast, wherever
in
it
the
is, and there's
mountains
no
in
one
Wales.
there. Yeah. And there's no one there, and it's January, and you've got to run 100 miles. Oh, and it's dark for 15 hours of the race. You've got to question what you're doing and why you're doing it. And the sort of people that do it. I believe it is people that want to live, that want to feel what it's like to live a life, like really live a life. As someone that's an addict, that I don't know where I read this, but I read it somewhere, and it was such a good description of addiction. When you are a recovering addict, every morning you wake up and it's like you wake up in a tent, you open the door and you're at the edge of a cliff. And you're either going to go off the edge of the cliff or you're going to stay on it that day. You don't know what's going to happen. You hope to stay on it. But you're, as an addict, I feel like I'm more alive, but closer to death than other people. Because it will take one slip for me, one little slip, right? To go over that edge. And that's fucking dangerous and scary. And I think there is something about that feeling of living that I have now that I get from the ultra running. So I've just done the Arc of Attrition, which is a 100-mile race from Coverack to Portadown on the English coast. Covers off Land's End. Land's End's right in the middle. In January, it's horrendous. It's a southwest coast path. It's a really, really gnarly bit of coast path. 15 hours of darkness. Took me 34 hours. It's long. I love that race because I feel like I am alive. I'm not distracted. It's very pure. I don't have to perform. I don't have to be socially anxious because everybody is there for the same reason. We're all going to help each other. We're all like being guided by this end point to this race. The people are there to, the volunteers are there to support you. The race director wants you to win. No one's trying to stop you. No one's trying to trip you up. No one's trying to be better than anyone else. Of course, you've got the people at the sharp end having a race, but even at the sharp end, you've got the two front men running next to each other for the majority of the race, having a good chat. It's not like they're elbowing each other off the cliff and like trying to trip each other up. That's the purest form, I think, of being human. That is like, I can be exactly who I want to be. And I experienced that in music. And when I went into music, when I was at Glastonbury or Reading or any of the big festivals, you get that experience. You're having that shared experience in that field. It's about being human. One of the things that pisses me off is when people say, is it your addictive personality? Is it that you're addicted to running or you're addicted to these ultras, you're addicted to the feeling? And I just think it does such a disservice to people who train for these events, people who get involved in these events, and people that have overcome addiction. I think it's such a stupid thing to say. It's such a dangerous thing to say. So I totally agree with you that when you look at the start line of a real big race, like a spine race or a 100-miler or a 50-miler or any of those big races, even like a trail marathon, because some of them are pretty horrible, you're looking at people that have been through stuff. Everyone's been through something. And you're looking at people that want to live. They want to spend their time living. They don't want to live through their phone or through their computer or through dreams or through games on the internet or through any of that. They want to actually smell things, taste things, feel pain, overcome it, problem solve, be part of a group. I think it's a real basic human thing. And more people should do it. They should prescribe it to kids at school.
They should. I think especially because of the whole being part of a group, because I feel like running is like one of the only places where you don't know half the time, like you can run with someone for 6 months and you have no idea what they do for a living. You don't even know like what,
you know how much money they've got.
You don't know how much money they have.
And you don't care.
Like, and nobody cares. Yeah, because you're like, you have a different goal that's common. Like we're training for this marathon. Or
I'd been like, I was in a group, like an online group for ages with this girl, and I found out like 4 or 5 years after like having first met her that she was a forensic pathologist. I was like, what? It's so cool.
cool.
Like,
Yeah.
but it's that, I've run with her a few times. I've chatted, we've been in races together. I've helped her bandage her feet up. I've held her and while she's cried on my shoulder. And then I'm like, what did you do? She's like, oh, I'm a forensic pathologist. I'm like, what, murders? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, it's that. And
Yeah.
it's you're not being pitted against each other. There's no judgment there, is there? It's all just about let's do this thing together. Let's look after each other. It's very, very basic humans doing what humans should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
We have one guy in our club. I was running with him for more than 2 years, and I found out that he was a Top Gun pilot. He was in Top Gun in France, and he was number one in his class. He came first in the Top Gun school. Just
That's amazing.
I can't
I
believe
found
it.
out.
I'm
I
running
found
with
out, right?
Maverick.
Yeah.
You were his goose that day. I found out, right? My pacer, I've got a friend called Sean, and he paces me for some races every now and again. It's the only time I ever see it. That's the thing. The only time I ever see my mates is when we're crewing, pacing, running, having a good time, whatever. He was the number 2 Robin reliant banger racer in the world.
Robin Reliance, for people who don't know, are three-wheeled cars, all three-wheeled cars, featured in Mr. Bean.
So niche. I was like, I didn't even realize that. He was like, yeah, it was actually it was actually really high level sport. I'm like, I thought he was taking the piss. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. He wasn't. It was true.
Oh, wow.
Incredible.
Yeah, you learn a lot of things while you're running with someone.
You learn a lot about their life. Like if you don't, when you're running along with someone and suddenly they tell you their entire life story, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not like being in a therapy room because you're next to each other and it's like
Yeah,
people feel like they can say things. I feel like that's a really special thing.
it is. It is. Yeah, it's like I've had a lot of good chats with like a lot of our club mates and, talk about, yeah, sometimes the not so easy things about life. And you realize that like you have more in common with a lot of people. It's just, if it was any other environment, you probably would have never spoken to them.
No. And I think what's really interesting is that society assumes the default position with humans is to be happy. So it's the depressed or the addicted or the sad that are defective. But that is not the case at all. And all of us, none of us are programmed to be happy. We're all programmed to do this. So we're all at some point going to have this like debacle with our mental health. Like whether it's a tiny little bit of the sad or whether it's huge amounts of chronic depression, all of us are going to have got things that we worry about. All of us have got like things that we're insecure about. So being able to go out for a run with someone and like get that off your chest and be like, do you know what? And it's part of the it's the main reason I wrote the book. You are not on your own. You are not on your own, and you're not weird, and you're not defective, and you're not like gonna be carted off by men in white coats. Certainly not in the UK because the NHS is struggling. So don't even think they're going to come around because they're not. But someone cares and you're heard, and it's like with a lot of people with illnesses like depression or addiction, they don't want you to cure them, but just want you to listen to them, and they want you just to say that you love them. That's all that they want. And if you can do that, that's when they can start on the recovery stuff, because it's individuals that need to recover. You can't help somebody to recover from this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of have to do it on their own because it's not the same for everybody. Do you find that because you're coaching now, which we didn't really touch on yet, but do you find that because of your blog and your book, that athletes that come to you sometimes come to you for more than just running help?
Yeah, and I do more than just running help. So I'd say 90% of what I do, 80% of what I do is like, I hate the term life coaching, but it's the mental mindset side of it. 20% of it is running. So I'm like, here's a plan, go and do it. Like what race have you got? We'll put in a plan. Anyone can follow a running plan. Anyone can download one off the internet. But with me, I'd look at people as individuals. So their plan will be completely focused around their lifestyle, their work, what their children, what their situation is with kids. Because a lot of people say I haven't got time, and I'm like, but you have got time. Like, watch this. This is magic. I can get you on a 40-mile week without you even noticing you're on a 40-mile week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about what's going on in your brain. Because like I said before, right? Everything that you create with your mind. So you're creating this idea you haven't got time. You're literally putting up a time wall. There is no time. There isn't time. Well, there is
Yeah.
time. because we've all got 24 hours in the day. And it's up to us how we use it. Like, we have all got time. It's up to you how you divvy up that time. And you can actually put time blocks on top of each other and do two things at once, especially if you've got really young children. You'd be surprised by how many miles you can get in running around the park. A lot. You can also get a strength session in running around the park because you can go on the monkey bars and stuff with them. Like, there's so much you can do. So I do that side of it, but then I also do deal with a lot of people that I would put in a lot of people that have had trouble with addiction in the past, or are worried about their relationships with addictive substances now. And I get a lot of messages from people who want me to try and help them, and I can't, because I'm not qualified to do that, and because that's not how it works. Like, at the end of the day, it's up to the individual. You can be supported, but you have to act on the stuff yourself. So it's a mixed bag, but I love it because most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, it works. And you watch these people go from like seriously believing that they're not able to do this stuff to actually doing the stuff. And it's really funny because sometimes I say to them, remember a year ago? I'll sit there and I'll be like, remember a year ago? And they'll be like, what? I'm like, remember where we were a year ago? Because I've got your plan in front of me and I can see where we were a year ago. And they would have just gone out and done a recce in the Welsh mountains on their own, you know, using a map and compass. Like, oh, I've just done 30 miles of this. It's really... And I'm like, a year ago, you literally did not know where Wales was. And you were too frightened to go on your own because you thought you were going to fall down a hole, or you thought that some mad Welsh man of the mountain would murder you. But now your little miss, look at me. And it's like, they've done that themselves with their mind. They've completely flipped it, and I think it's incredible that people can do that. And it's not me that's doing it, it's them that's doing it, but I'm just helping to facilitate those changes, and it's all stuff that I've learned myself. I'm not a qualified coach in any way, but I have learned this stuff because I've tested it on myself. I'm the guinea pig.
So do you get people, basically the common thread is running, though? Like, they come to you for a running coach, but then they kind of know that you
do you know what? Like,
what?
This is a funny bit, right? This is a funny bit. There's some of them come to me. Sorry about this, Alan. The middle-aged men. And they say to me, I want to run the spine.
I'm flattered that you think
run...
I'm middle-aged.
Oh.
And I'm like, do you? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, I've seen Damien Hall do that. I think I could do it. And I'm like, do you? Lovely. So why
that race is really tough.
Yeah. So I'm like, so why do you want to do that? And they're like, I just think I can. And I'm like, but why? And that's the first problem. So
they're having a midlife crisis.
Yeah, well, or just like there's a cover story. There's something going on where you feel this need to prove something to someone. I'm not sure who. And you need a why, a really clear why. And if you don't have it, it's really hard for me as a coach to like get into the nitty gritty of why you can't do it on your own, because you've asked me for help. You're just telling me that you're going to do the spine because you want to impress me, because I'm not impressed. Seriously. I know people that have done the Barkley marathons. The spine doesn't impress me.
Oh my gosh.
And a lot of the times these blokes will be like, oh, and I'm like, I don't even know why you're here. And when you ask for the why and dig into it, you get to some pretty weird, dark, sad places. And nowadays, because of the internet, I think people just want to be like really, really good at something really quickly. So like, they don't want to go and do like a marathon, a 50k, a 50 miler, 100 miler, spine. They want to do the spine. And explaining that to people is quite difficult because they see it on the internet, so they think it's like easy, or they think that there is a hack, or they think you just jump in, and it's like, no, that's.
I mean, the thing is because the athletes kind of make it look easy because you're watching the live stream, so you're watching like the top, like whatever 10 of the spine race, and they're not just running along.
The athletes are not making it look easy. Your brain is making it look easy.
Very true. Yeah,
the athletes aren't doing anything. The athletes are being the athletes. They're cracking on and doing what they're doing, and you're seeing 10 seconds, 5 seconds,
usually when they come into the aid station as well.
Yeah, and of course they're in the aid station like, hello, they're going to be polite to the guys at the aid station. You see seconds. So it's not them making it look easy, it's you making it look easy. It's your brain going, he's not crying or laying down on the floor, that must be easy. Think about it. And you're assuming it's your motivated bias. It's what you want. That's what you want to see, because that's what your brain wants to be real. Like, it's like that happens with everything. And that's how people get addicted to stuff, like, because your brain will motivate and bias you into believing that it's real. So I think people need to be really, really careful with that. But the point I'm trying to make is, when I have people come to me, the first thing that we do is we work out what their values are in their life, why they want to do this stuff, and honestly, what the problem is. Because they've come to me for a reason. But the interesting thing is, a lot of the time, they will go against my advice, ignore it, or go, yeah, I know you said only run 40 miles, but I ran 60. And I'm like, do you honestly think I'm going to be impressed? Because I'm not. I think you're a bell end that can't follow instructions. It's almost like, because it's such a niche sport, they want someone there to tell them that they're great, but that's not the sort of coach that I am. So I just like, I can't work with that. It's really important to me that people are honest, and really important to me that people tell me absolutely everything. And that can be difficult, especially when I've got a lot of male clients who are quite high up military, or like have had roles in which they've had a lot of control, or roles that have given them post-traumatic stress disorder, or roles in which they felt like they had no control. And it's about unpicking that, because sometimes with ultra running, that's the thing that people do because they feel like they have a control over it, when actually there's a lot of ultra running you can't control at all, like your stomach, the weather, like who else is running, loads of stuff. So yeah, I do love it though. It's really interesting. I meet some really interesting people.
Let me talk to you a little bit about running. So our listeners are going to be running orientated, so I need to touch on the big running events as well that occur in your book. Describe 3 events to us, a bit like a rite of passage. The Ulaanbaatar Mongolia Lake Traverse, which sounds absolutely bonkers, minus 45 degrees. Sounds like you're just setting yourself up to be in Lord of the Rings or something. Namibia, 135 miles across the desert, and then the Panama Jungle Traverse, where you actually say some of the miles, and I find this mind-boggling, some of the miles took over 40 minutes to complete a mile. You must be just wading through jungle.
Some of them took an hour.
That is
took an hour and 8
unreal.
minutes.
It's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah, it's mad. You've obviously never run in Wales, Alan.
Yeah, it sounds like those things were sort of almost a rite of passage for you when you came out of Panama. You seemed to be a changed person.
I mean,
was that true?
No.
Okay.
Probably like for about 10 minutes. Like, I thought that I was, but I wasn't, because I didn't deal with anything. So Mongolia, all of these things were tests for actual events you can go and do now. So the Mongolia event was 4 days running across a frozen lake in minus 45. Ouch. That event is now called the Mongol 100, and it's not in minus 45 because they do it in March, whereas we went in December. So it's actually only minus 10. Easy.
Yeah.
It's still ice though, and it's quite hard to run on flat, except for the bits that are all smashed up. So then there was the Namibian one, which is race to the wreck. So that's 135 miles over 5 days, 4 days, four and a half days, sleeping in the desert in tents. I loved that. And it's incredible because of the amount, because you're not allowed in that part of the desert, and the amount of nature you see, of wildlife. You run through river valleys, you run up the biggest sand dunes in the world. And then when you get to the end, you get to the wreck of the Edward Bolen on the coast of the Atlantic. And it's just incredible. And then Panama, which was the worst thing I ever did, the most scary thing I ever did. And just terrifying. Like, the jungle's terrifying. And it's exactly, actually, I'd say it's exactly what you think it's going to be like, but you can't think what it's going to be like until you've been in there, because it's too frightening to think about, like, because it's just horrific and everything in there wants to kill you. So the animals want to kill you, the plants want to kill you, everything wants to kill you. So it was really hard. And obviously it was a test event, so we got lost. We spent a long time in the jungle, but much longer than we should have, maybe 2 or 3 days. I had a lot, and there was no way of communicating with the outside world and no way of getting out unless you were to break your arm, and then you'd be medevaced out with a helicopter or whatever. But the problem with Panama is they've only got 2 helicopters, so you're in a queue waiting.
Oh my gosh.
Don't try and hack your arm off with a machete, because you might be in a queue for some time. So it was horrendous. But what I write about in the book with those things is those were the first time that I'd been given a job which I was like, right, I could be 100% focused on this and I can do it. because I know I can run and I know I can get from A to B. But it did all three of those forced me to sit with myself and my own thoughts, because I couldn't get hold of any alcohol, although I did in Mongolia get hold of some vodka off the locals because they were keeping it in their little cozy
in their yurts.
outfits. Yeah, they've got these funny little outfits that are like great big dressing gowns. And they keep vodka there because it keeps them warm. They've all got vodka, they've all got cigarettes. And even though I spoke no Mongolian, I did manage to make friends with the Mongolians. So I was in my element, to be quite frank, except for when I was on the ice, because obviously I can't drink vodka on the ice. That would be frowned on. And then Namibia, again, long nights by the campfire, a few beers here and there, bottle of Jägermeister, great hanging out with the locals. The crew were South Africans, so they had rum in their trucks. I obviously am very gregarious, make friends with these people, get the free booze, not a problem. Panama, no. There is no booze in Panama because there are no shops, because you're in the jungle. And you're carrying everything literally everything. Food, clothes, a medical kit, water filters, everything. My pack weighed like 35 to 40 kilograms. It was so heavy. And then you end up carrying literally your own shit because you can't leave anything in the jungle. So if that happens, you do a little poo, you either bury it. If you can't bury it, you put it in a bag with the toilet paper and you carry it out the jungle. So you're carrying everything. And there was no room for booze. So it was like a rehab situation for me, except it wasn't the best place to be in rehab because it was horrendously scary and I was very hungry all the time. We all were, and then we got lost. So it was like,
oh my gosh.
And I thought I'd faced my. I've written about that chapter of the book originally was 30,000 words long, but now it's been cut down to like 4 pages. There's a very long blog on my website about it. I'd encourage anyone that reads the book and is interested in that Panama bit to read the blog. It's very long, but you get a sense of what's going on.
You had a lot of blog excerpts in your book, and you always refer back saying that like people could go read the rest on your blog. So people could actually do the opposite and go read some of your blog posts and then buy the book because they want to know more.
Which is interesting because the blogs were written when I was drinking. The blogs were written like years ago, back when it was actually happening. And the book obviously was written and finished in the last 18 months. So it's all very, very different, but it's a real snapshot of that time. But the Panama blog is so long. I reckon it's 20,000 words long.
Oh gosh,
I wanted to include everything. And I thought to myself when I came out of Panama, I'm fixed, I'm cured.
Yeah.
Nope, you're not fixed or cured. Because guess what the first thing I did when I got out of the jungle was?
Have a drink.
Of course I did. Straight down to the shop in David, get myself some tinnies, let's get on it.
Yeah, it was surprising sometimes how quickly you'd get a drink after like a big event that you do, or you accomplish something big. And
but there's always, you can get drink everywhere, it's legal, so you can get it everywhere, and they give it to you because you finished an event, so they're like, hurrah, let's celebrate, or
that's true.
It's everywhere.
I guess the title of your chapter 3, Running Won't Save You, is not called Running Won't Save You by accident. You go on to prove it again and again during your book. One of the things that was interesting about the actual running exploits and the incredible ultra experiences that you had is that it was a long time before you had a DNF.
I didn't DNF till I was sober.
Yeah, I think if I remember rightly from the reading of the book, it was at the Arc of Attrition, your first attempt at the Arc of Attrition.
Yeah.
Which is the sort of gnarly Cornwall, incredibly tough race that you described earlier.
It's my favourite race, Alan. I love it.
And then I think you DNF'd at Dragonback, which is the Wales, is that Snowdonia?
It's 5 days, 6 days now, Dragon's Back. It's from Conwy in the north of Wales to Cardiff Castle at the bottom of Wales. And it's now 6 days. It was originally 5, but it is ridiculous because the cut-offs are so tight. So you're doing 30 or 40 miles a day over some of the most inhospitable mountains in the UK, or in Wales.
When you DNF, did you learn anything from that in terms of a different experience, or was it just, well, okay, it had happened sometimes, so there you go?
No, the first time I DNF'd was my first sober race, so I had never done a race sober, as in not having drunk anything the night before or anything during the race. Apart from my first London Marathon, where I had 40 days without drinking.
So do you think that's not a coincidence?
No, it's not a coincidence.
Okay.
It's directly correlating to it, because that was the first race I'd ever done where I had feelings that I could identify. So I would go into races hungover, and it would be like running through fog, and I didn't feel anything. It was almost like anhedonic, where you just don't have any feelings, and any feelings you do have, you just block them out. It's like, it's like to have a really bad hangover. That's basically what it's like. Like, so you can't feel anything. So I would just keep going. Didn't matter how macerated my feet were. Didn't matter how awful I felt. Didn't matter how much I was throwing up or shitting myself or any of that. I just keep going. I thought that a DNF was like a big black mark against your name.
Mhm.
Well, when I was doing the Arc of Attrition, my race was going really well until I got to Land's End, and then I stopped eating because I just felt like I didn't want to eat anymore. Now, if I'd have done that when I was drinking, I wouldn't have cared. I would have just cracked on, and I would have taken loads of gels, and I would have probably drunk loads of Coca-Cola, and I would have felt absolutely rancid. But because I couldn't feel anything, I wouldn't have felt anything. Do you know what I mean? So the feelings would have been there, but the thoughts weren't.
Mhm.
And I would have just been like, "You're a piece of shit. Go, go, go," and hammer myself till I get to the end. When you can think straight, that's not what happens. And I felt like I was very sensitive to everything. So I got to 67 miles, and I hadn't eaten anything for about 10 hours, and I was throwing up everywhere, and I felt absolutely awful. And I thought the kindest thing that you can do is stop, because I had these newfound values that I was living by. And one of them was kindness to myself and to others. I was like, you're not being very nice to yourself here. You're being an arsehole to yourself for no reason. Stop. You're going to miss the cut. I thought I was going to miss the cut off. I don't know if I would have missed the cut off, but I was like, stop. And I felt horrendous for 2 weeks. I felt like an absolute loser. But then I pieced it together and was like, it's actually the kindest, most honest thing I could have done at the time for myself, because I just felt awful. I didn't understand why I was doing it. And I was scared of missing the cut off. So I came to peace with that quite quickly. And then Dragon's Back, I just had taken on too much. That year I'd taken on the Arc of Attrition, Land's End to John O'Groats, and Dragon's Back. And I was not in a fit state to do Dragon's Back. It was 6 weeks after having run 1,000 miles the length of the UK. I'm off to go and do this bloody 300-mile race. I'm very early in my sobriety. I'm not mountain trained, and I'm not mountain fit. And I missed the cutoff on day 2 by 15 minutes. And I know why. It's because I fucked about in the morning and didn't leave at 6 o'clock. I left at 20 past 6 instead of 6 o'clock. So, but I think I would have been timed out later down the line. And I just didn't have it in me. I just wasn't good enough. And that's okay to accept that I'm not good enough on that terrain, because since that's happened, I have spent a year and a half now in the gym every week. I've changed the way that I train. I've changed the way I run. And possibly one day I'll go back and do it again. But I didn't particularly enjoy my time at Dragon's Back for a number of reasons. So I'm not sure I'll go back and do it as an event, but I might go back and just do the course by myself, because I love that part of the world. Those are the only 2 races I've ever DNF'd. Last year I had what I call a CBA, which stands for a can't be asked. And halfway through the race just stopped. Because I was like, fuck this. It's raining. I'm cold. My pants are wet. It's July. I thought this was going to be a summer ultra. I'm not having any of this. Stop.
Yeah.
So I just stopped. And I don't care. Because it was supposed to be a summer ultra, and it rained all day.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not as advertised.
And I was like, I've already done this route once this year. I don't know why I'm doing it again. What's am I doing? And I learned from that, don't enter races when you don't really want to do them, Allie, because it's a hard thing to do. You can't take it for granted, these 100 milers. You can't just think, I'll just rock up and do it. And now the only thing that will make me DNF is real sickness. I've got a kill criteria: real sickness, career-threatening injury, or really adverse weather, where I'm like, I'm really not having a good time at all. And I've got a golden rule that most people that know me know: if my underpants are wet for more than 6 hours, we're done.
That's
because I'm 42 years old, Liz. I know what I like, and I know how I want to spend my leisure time. And it is not having buckets of water thrown over me to make me look hard or resilient or brave or brutal or whatever the word is. I know what I like. I like long distances, summer's days. I like eating, throwing up, shitting in Sainsbury's carrier bags, all of it. But what I don't like is wet pants. No.
Okay, found your nemesis.
Yeah,
you have.
Wet underpants.
Wet
I can
underpants.
totally understand that, because I have a bit of that with I read all these. So we actually have a teammate that he's done the Barkley Fall Classic, which is like kind of like a mini version of the Barkley that you can
It's
go
kind
do.
of
It's like
it's
50K or something.
it's what
And
Laz
he
calls a warning. It's a
Oh my
warning.
God. He came back from that. You should have seen the state of his legs. He wore shorts. Oh my goodness. He had scabs everywhere. Like apparently it's just, things well, the trails are not really trails as
No,
is the case with
it's
the Barkley, right?
it's
And then
Briars, isn't it? Like
yeah.
I know Nikki Spinks, I know James Elson, I know Damien Hall. All three of them have done Barkley at least one loop, right? And I'm like,
Mm.
how is it so hard? I do not understand. And they've explained it to me, but they're like, we can't really explain it to you. They're like, it's a bit like rolling around in barbed wire. My friend David Miller is a photographer and he goes out and takes all the photos. So he's thinking about doing a coffee table book of the photos.
Oh, that'll be cool. We shall be after his
He
publisher to
shot
get
the
a freebie.
he shot the cover of my book.
Nice. We haven't got hard copies of your book yet, so hopefully we're gonna get them anyway.
You'll have to wait quite some time. I know someone in Australia ordered one when it came out. She still hasn't
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, I'm only in Australia on vacation, so I'll be back in Canada and
Actually, before you continue, now that you do all these, although maybe I'm interrupting, Alan's probably going to ask about some more grueling races, but I'm just kind of
go
curious
ahead.
now that like you seem to do a lot of really long races. Do you still ever, do any marathons or shorter races?
Not organized ones.
Hmm.
I do them in training, but I my thing is I really like to be out for as long as is humanly possible, and I like to be in very remote places, and I like to be like just that on your own thing. So like this weekend, I'm going to the Lake District, and I'm going to run 28 miles in the Lake District because I'm recceing an event that's 100K. So I'm like, so I do that the weekend. Most weekends I'll go out and do like a marathon distance, but I don't really do marathon events. They just don't really interest me. Like it's just
Okay.
this makes me sound like an absolute moron, but it's not enough. I think I'll feel pressure to go fast or be good in inverted commas, and I just just doesn't interest me. If it's a training run and I need to do a marathon and there's one on, I'll go and do it. But
yeah, I mean that's fair because I know that like I'm a bit the opposite of you. Like I enjoy road running a lot, and like I've done some trail races. Like I've run the Quebec Mega Trail 50K twice now, I think. And you know, I find that in trail races sometimes like the trail is not runnable.
oh yeah, it's never
And
runnable. That's when you eat your cakes.
yeah, I mean, so I get that, but I guess like that when I train for a race, like I figure I should be running. And there can be whole like 5K sections that are not runnable. So
Yeah, but the thing about that is, can you train to get over those 5K sections as quickly as possible, then start running again? So it's a totally different ball game, isn't it? Like it's like with my art athletes who are doing like things like the arc of attrition, for example. I'm like, you need to strength train to get over those boulders really, really as quickly as you possibly can, and start running again. So I think it's just different strokes for different folks. Like I can't imagine anything worse than doing a road marathon because I would be forced into going faster than I'm comfortable with. But you put me on a 36-hour run in the middle of nowhere with a map and no one else, I am like a pig in shit. I love that. It's my absolute jam. I just love it. So it's all about what you like. And I think as long as you know what you like, that's cool. And I know that I don't like wet pants. So there you go.
I think I like to mix it up a bit. That brings me to something, a little story. When I was doing the Vermont 50, that's a 50K, yes, 50K trail race in Vermont, northern USA. One of the things I did, because some of the trails are difficult and you're walking or you're jogging slowly, was to come up beside people and you start talking to them. It's not like a marathon race where you're trying to run past people. You feel embarrassed passing people, so you come up back beside them and go, "Oh, hi, how are you going?" And I got into a habit of asking people about their tattoos because quite a lot of people would have some sort of running tattoo on their leg or on their arm. So I'd say, "Oh, that's a nice tattoo you got. What's the story behind that?" And I got a whole swag of different stories of people's experiences because often tattoos are meaningful to people, and then they go, "Oh, well, let me tell you, this happened," and you get to sort of a little story of their life. And that was really cool. I found that to be pretty cool. So
Has
that's
anybody
just
ever
a
just gone, nah, I was drunk and I got it on holiday?
yeah. But you could tell the ones, I think you could tell the ones where they say nah. But yeah, some people go, well, I just wanted to get a tattoo, so I just did it. You know, that's it. Um, that's a very long way of bringing me to the story or the question. I know you have a whole bunch of tattoos, Ali. Do you have any meaningful tattoos? Anything you'd
All
like
of
to
them.
tell us about?
All of them. I don't have a running tattoo though.
Oh,
Oh
Don't
no,
have any.
I guess you're missing one.
No, I'm all right, thanks. No, I don't feel the need to do that. Most of my tattoos are band related, so they're music related.
okay,
That's how it started,
okay.
and that's how it will end. So, but
A
then
la Biffy
but
Clyro.
I've got a Biffy lyric here, off on the old shoulder. There, take the pieces and build them skywards.
That's
Um,
what's it called? Machines?
yeah, that's actually take the pieces and build them skywards is actually a chapter in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So most of mine are band related, and then I've got things like I'm really into like the nature. I'm like into my birds and my forest creatures. Not as much as my dog Pickle is into the forest creatures, but so I've got like deer and swallows, and I'm having a massive back piece done, which is elephants with this stuff around them. It's all a bit mental.
Oh, okay, so I was gonna say like, oh, so you stopped getting new tattoos,
No,
but that's not the case. Yeah, I heard it was a bit of an addiction because I have an athlete that I coach, and whenever I make her take a break, she ends up with a new tattoo, and I'm like, so last time she took a break in the fall, I said like, okay, now so this time for your break, you need to like go find a book to read. No more tattoos. I'm like, you're gonna be covered soon. But
number
yeah,
one,
she
I
she
am
told
gonna.
me it's an addiction. Like well,
It's
not an
not an
addiction.
addiction.
It's yeah,
So
it's
number
totally.
one, it's not an addiction, and that like everybody listening to this, you need to watch your language with the word addiction. It is
Mm.
not the word to use. She likes getting tattoos. She enjoys getting tattoos, and she gets tattoos whenever she's got a bit of free time because that's what she likes doing. That's absolutely fine, but it's not an addiction. Addiction is something that you cannot stop doing that is detrimental to your well-being. So it's like,
It's not
but
detrimental to her
it's
well-being.
not. But also, she can stop doing it. She doesn't sit there and go, "I'm going to die if I don't get a tattoo." With addiction, that's the feeling. I'm going to die if I don't behave like this. I'm going to die if I don't have this drink. I'm going to die if I don't have a cigarette. That's what you feel like. And so you'll lie, you'll cheat, you'll do anything to get that thing. You don't get addicted to running. You don't get addicted to tattoos because otherwise you'd be absolutely covered in them and you'd spend all your money and you'd have no food in the house and it's totally different, right?
Mm.
Mm.
With mine,
Mm.
like now, if I see something I like, I'll go and get it tattooed. So I got obsessed with Ted Lasso. Did you get Ted Lasso over there?
Oh,
Oh,
I'm absolutely
yeah,
yeah. I've just
yeah.
finished
I
watching
really
it for the
like Ted
third time
Look,
Lasso.
through.
look at my Ted
Oh,
Lasso
nice. I
believe
love it.
tattoo.
Yeah. So I
So I was like, I've
tried.
got to get that written
Oh,
on my arm.
brilliant.
So I literally went straight to the tattooist, was like, put it on my arm because that I hold that in my head and I give it that to my clients all
Mm.
the time. I'm like, watch Ted Lasso, be
It's
more like
massively
Mhm.
Ted.
powerful, I
Yeah,
think.
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Mm.
good. It's like
I
Ted,
like
he's the
Ted.
greatest coach. And then like I found a picture of a unicorn, but it was also zebra. So I got a unicorn zebra. And then I see things everywhere and I'm like, look at that. And then I just go, put it on me. And it's just a highly enjoyable hobby because it's like, now I've got that on me. I went out for dinner with Lazarus Lake,
Yes.
right?
Oh, wow.
Organizer of the
Yeah, I
barbecue.
did.
Okay.
Yeah, me and Laz went for dinner. And he gave me a riddle. And he wrote the riddle down on a piece of paper and gave it to me. And he said, if you can tell me the answer to that riddle, you can do the Barkley. And I was like, okay. Now the riddle
That's a pretty
said
good impression, by the way, huh?
that it said he wrote it down on a bit of paper. It says 11 plus 2 equals. That's his handwriting. I had it tattooed on my arm. So it's the words 11 plus 2 equals. He said, what's the answer to the riddle? And there's like 4 of us around the table, and none of us got the answer to the riddle. Apparently, Nikki Spinks got the answer straight away. And then he gave me the answer, and then he wrote it down on a bit of paper, and I went and got that tattooed on my arm because the answer to the riddle basically is the equivalent of you can do, there's more than one way to skin a cat, basically. And I remember that all the time. So stuff I need to remember about me. I've got the word worthy written on my arm because I'm like, you are worthy, no matter what you think, you are worthy. I've got believe written on me. I've got all of this. I've got those Biffy lyrics because I'm like, things that center me and make me feel like it's all going to be okay are important to have within sight, right? So there's probably going to be, there's loads of other weird stuff. Like I've got 5 birds in an anchor. I grew up near the sea. Got 5 nieces and nephews. I need to add one in because I've got a new one now. Got to just put another bird on it. Like I've got these great big lynxes because they're like my sobriety guardians. I've got one on each arm because I'm like, they will guard me from like making any mistakes. And if I do decide I'm going to make a mistake, I've got that to remind me not to make a mistake. It's stuff like that. So I don't have a running one because I don't need a running one because running is like not something I need to be reminded I have to do because I love it so much. So it's really interesting. But and I totally get that people have them, but I'm like, I just don't feel the need to have one.
Yeah, I think there's mixed feelings about the you know, everybody that does an Iron Man will get the Iron Man tattoo.
But Iron
And
Man will sue people for using their logo. They will sue people for using their logo. So I'm just waiting for people to start getting cease and desist on their cars.
Oh my gosh. Well, luckily they can usually, you know, cover it with a long pair of socks or something. Because I see them a lot, like kind of in the back of the calf or on the side of the ankle bone kind of thing. So you can kind of hide them. But
honestly, like the M dot, as we call it in the UK, it's just a no. Just stop. Just no. No, stop.
I think if you completed an Ironman, like you deserve that tattoo.
I mean, do you really need to tell everyone about it though? Really?
You're probably going to tell everybody about it anyway, whether you've got the tattoo
probably.
or not.
Actually, you're probably going to tell everybody about the training. So
you're asking
for
people. But okay, so look at what Alan did. You're asking for people to ask you. Oh, have you done an Ironman? That's what you're waiting for. Anyway, look, they're not doing us any harm, are they? The M dot guys, they can continue as they were. As long as they're not doing me any harm, and as long as they don't want to talk to me about Iron Man, that's fine.
You don't coach any Ironman triathletes?
Absolutely not. Jack of all trade, master of none. No.
Talk about making it controversial. There are, I don't want to go on too long because you're well past your bedtime now, but I can't resist. There are two characters that are pretty strong in the story that are sort of involved around your move out of London, I think originally in the book. The 2 characters I'm referring to are Pickle in particular, and a chap called Julius. Tell us a little bit about them.
Let's start with Julius because that won't take long. Julius is my ex-boyfriend. I went out with him for like 5 years, maybe 4 years, something like that. I lived with him in Somerset. He's still my best friend to this day. Okay. He is incredible. And I think you need to read the book to see why he is incredible, because he is just one of those people that he's just incredible. He should have been my brother. Like, I feel like we should never have gone into a relationship, really. But because we're better off the way we are now.
You do get that best friends sort of vibe.
He is the kindest, most patient, most annoying, most ridiculous. Oh my God, he's so annoying at the moment. He's so annoying, but I love him so much. He's literally like my brother. And he's one of those people that I could just say anything to it. I could say anything to anyone, but do you know what I mean? Like, he knows me. He absolutely gets me. Yeah. And we can go weeks without speaking to each other, but then spend 4 weeks together and it'll be okay. But God, he gets on my nerves. He's so irritating, especially at the moment because the book's come out. He's getting quite a lot of interest from women. So he's like dating and doing and be like, and I'm like, oh, right. Okay. You come out well from that, haven't you? He's like, yeah, I have. And I'm like, And then there's
it was good publicity for him.
Brilliant publicity. You should have seen him at the book launch walking around in his suit like young Julius. And it's like, Julius, not here. Go fishing in a different. And then there's Pickle, and Pickle is my dog. Okay, so she is the love of my life, and she is asleep over there at the moment, side-eyeing me. But she is, I don't even know what to say about Pickle. The book's dedicated to Pickle. Everything I do is for Pickle. I love her. She's my running partner, and I don't want to say that she saved me, but she went a long way to. She's a rescue. She's a rescue. She's a Bulgarian rescue, and she rescued me. That's what she did, because I had to start being responsible because I had a little body to be responsible for.
Yeah.
And I don't have children. I'm never going to have children. But I feel like if I did, I'd feel similarly about the children as I do the dog, because she does everything with me. Like, sleeps in my bed. She is like, I was running with me. In fact, I think I spend more time with her than I would with a child because she comes everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I love her and she's amazing. And like, she just gave me, I think people often say people save them or dogs save them, but actually you're always in charge of the choices that you make. You're always, you have reason and you have love and you have commitment and you have a focus as to why you should get well or why you want to get well, but it is ultimately you that does the work. And it's the same
Mm-hmm.
like when you get a coach, you can get a coach, but it's you that's going to do the work on your brain and the work on your body and all that sort of stuff. It's you that's going to be committed. So the coach can divert you to push you in the right direction, and Pickle pushes me in the right direction, and Julius pushes me in the right direction, but really it's me that's got to do the work. And the thing is, I know that if something happened to me and I started drinking or smoking or doing whatever it was again, Julius would still stand by me. He doesn't judge me. He would just look after me. And that's all you can ask for, isn't it? In a really, really good friend. And let's face it, everyone, I treated Julius like shit, but he was always there. And since then, he's treated me that badly as well. But we're just human beings. We understand that. Yeah, there's no judgment within our relationship because everything is neutral at the end of the day. It's the thoughts we put onto it that make it good, bad, positive, negative, whatever. So, we do try our best and we are still really good mates and we see each other all the time. And he'll be thrilled about this. He'll be like, oh, I'll listen to that podcast then if I'm on it. Yeah.
There you go. And of course, all the girls will listen to it because it features
Of
Julius.
course they will. Form an orderly queue, ladies, for Julius.
Yeah, apparently he's already getting lots of attention after the book launch. So
he's taking applications. So I don't know.
I guess I have one last question, which is what do you hope people get out of this story? Are you hoping people will get something out of it? And what is the something?
I know what people are getting out of it because they're messaging me. Because it's done really well in the UK. It's been on the Amazon bestseller list since it came out.
Right.
And it's got up, it's been number one on loads of the charts. And I am getting messages every day from people that are like, thank you for writing this book, basically. Like, I hate this because it makes me feel like we discussed earlier, it makes me feel like I'm blowing my own trumpet. But then, like,
I've just asked you
this is what I wanted. This is what I wanted. And it's just people are like, I've ripped through this book in a day. They've like read the whole thing in one sitting. That's the thing I get the most. And people are like, I never read books, and I read the whole thing in one go. It was really easy to read. And they're also saying that the way that I explain addiction and the way I explain how I feel has really resonated with them. And it's like I get a lot of, it's like reading about me. And I think that's what I wanted, because there is a very helpful bit at the end that I hope is very, very helpful, that I think can steer people in the direction of hope. Because when you are addicted or when you are depressed or when you are seeking validation through exercise or through a hobby or through whatever it is and not getting it, you can feel hopeless, but there is hope. And that's what I want people to come away from it with. And I've had a lot of people that are like, I'm not ready to stop drinking yet, or I'm not ready to like talk to my family about how I feel yet, or I'm not ready to do this yet, but I'm going to read the book again. And I'm like, whenever you're ready, you'll know when you're ready. And if this is helping you feel seen, that's perfect, because it's not supposed to change your life and it doesn't work like that. But for people to feel like there is someone out there, and I've done it. I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I'm a runner. I'm relatively happy. I have days where I'm not happy, but I'm a human being, so that's okay. I'm content with my lot. And I think that for people to be able to see that, but also to see someone that does have shit days, which I do, and is really honest on social media, which I am, and is like, wow, life is 50% shit, 50% good. That's what it is, isn't it? So like, I think
it's just usually you don't post about the part that's not going so well, right?
No, but I do every flipping day. So, and I think that's important because we can laugh at it if we all share it, right? If we share the load. Like, so I posted something the other day that I was on holiday in the Philippines, and there was these amazing paintings, murals on the sides of buildings, and this mural just said, just because you carry it well, it doesn't mean the load's not heavy. And I was like, that is genius.
Well, yep.
Because a lot of people carry it so well, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And I think that's the thing. And there's so much stigma around mental health, depression, addiction, especially when it comes to something like alcohol, which is freely available, that we are supposed to control ourselves around. Like, what the actual fuck are they doing? Drink responsibly. If you don't drink responsibly, it's your fault. If you get addicted to this, it's your fault. It's not our fault for pushing it on you and saying you need to have it at every wedding, funeral, bar mitzvah, joyful thing, sad thing, great thing, awful thing, celebration, commiseration, have it all the time, have it every Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. That's not our problem. It's yours if you get addicted. So drink responsibly. Yeah. That's mad. To have a shame around addiction, being addicted to a substance that's highly addictive, that we are forced into drinking, and if we don't drink it, it's seen as weird. That's mad. Like, I want this conversation around alcohol to be opened up, but it will never ever be opened up because there's so much money in it for our governments, so much, and it's a control mechanism. It's an actual fucking control mechanism. So it's, for years I didn't see it either, but now I do, and I feel like I'm turning into some sort of mad ranting person. But it frustrates me when people say I'm really depressed and they're drinking so much alcohol, because I was really depressed and I was drinking so much alcohol. When I stopped drinking the alcohol, I got less depressed. Didn't cure it, but I got a lot less depressed. So, and then there's the running, which like brings these incredible things into your life: people, community, acceptance, spirit, love, like,
which is all good for depression.
Absolutely brilliant. And you can talk to people and you're not judged. So, you know, and how many people do I get that are like, I can't do that, I'm not good enough to do that? Yes, you are, and you can, and you will. And all you have to do is just get your trainers on. 1 mile. That's it. 1 mile. Run a bit, walk a bit, run a bit, walk a bit. That's it. And then you're a runner. You started. And the minute you start, you become a runner, and you're never not a runner. What a magical thing.
I think another thing to point out, just because this is something that I used to hear, because I used to work in a hospital where they had something called a smoking cessation nurse. It was a nurse. She would walk around. If there was a smoker that was admitted for some kind of lung problem, she'd come and visit with them and like try and get them to either see if they wanted to quit smoking. And if they did, she would help them. So she had a whole bunch of tools. And one of the things that I remember she told me, she said, like, it's very rare that anybody can quit the first time. Usually takes a few tries. And like from your book, it sounds like it's a bit the same thing for alcohol. So it doesn't mean because you tried to quit once and you didn't that you can't.
No, you only fail when you stop trying. That's the only time you fail, is when you stop trying. And so I 100% agree with you. Do you know how many times I tried to stop smoking in my life? Probably 18. I've cracked it. I finally cracked it. But I've only cracked it because I've kept at it. I haven't cracked it completely, have I? And I haven't cracked the not drinking either, because tomorrow's a new day and anything can happen. And I could fall right off that wagon and roll down the road. Don't think I will. I'm planning on not drinking tomorrow or smoking. But, you know, it's like, you're right. You're absolutely right. Like, people shouldn't be disheartened because it hasn't worked the first time. It's about, you know, you learn from it and you jump back on the pony again. Like, same with running. Like, running, you don't suddenly start running and suddenly you're like some sort of like amazing ultra runner, do you? It takes ages.
Yeah, takes decades sometimes.
And things still go wrong. Arc of attrition this year. I'm a seasoned 100-mile runner. I've run like 1,500-mile races, but I still didn't change my shoes at the right point. I still macerated my feet. I still forgot to eat anything in the last 6 miles of the race. So by the time I finished, I was like, I'm dying. Like, I'm stupid. Are you stupid, Allie? Like, no, I just forgot, because no one's perfect.
What's the best place for people to get a copy of your book? Is Amazon fine, or
Amazon? Annoyingly, Amazon. So it's on Audible. There's an Audible version, which I'm narrating. It's only 5 hours long on Audible. And then get it on Amazon, because I'd love you to buy it for the publishers, but if you're not in the UK, it'll probably take about 17 years to get to you. So Amazon's the one.
What about your services? Are you available to be contacted for coaching services?
Absolutely not. Sorry, I'm just too full. I've got a waiting list at the moment, and it's too full. So I'd love to say yes, but the answer is no. But if people want me to come over and do workshops in Canada and want to pay for me to come and do it, of course I'll come. That's not a problem.
Great. And how would they get a hold of you if ever we have someone listening that that can arrange
Yeah,
a
which is
workshop.
I'm
what's
pretty
your
sure that
course.
some Canadian university is going to be like, come and do a talk, and I will pay for you to come over, and I'll be like,
I'm
cool.
sure.
possible.
Instagram
Okay.
is AB_runs. And then I've got a website, it's alliebailey.co.uk. And then you can just fill in the little form, send me my plane ticket, and I'll come and live in Canada. That escalated quickly, didn't it?
Yeah. You can stay at our place in
Don't,
Montreal.
because that Canada's the sort of place that I would like to live.
Yeah, well, you'd get used to that minus 10 degrees.
Yeah, you'd love that.
You know.
The winters tried to kill you here. It'd be just
I
what you
love
want.
bears.
Oh.
But I love bears. So have you got any bears that I can roll around
Oh
with?
my. So like, yeah, any trail race you do, there's a risk of a bear sighting. So you'd be like, yeah.
I'd be covered in peanut butter. And they'd be like, no, Allie, you're not to do that.
No, you're not supposed to do that.
But they might come over. You don't want them to come over. Oh, there's a
really
one. Yeah, that's the last thing I'm going to do, isn't it? Yeah, get eaten by a bear. I love bears. But yes, if anybody wants me to come to Canada, just shout.
So we're going to give our 1 minute just summaries. So one of the values Ali develops is honesty. And as I said at the start, I'm not sure I could have been as honest as she is in this book. However, we do know that champions from our previous podcast, we do know that champions are ultra realists. And I guess this book makes Ali a champion without a doubt. The book we read was in e-format, so I can't really comment on the nature of the physical copy, but the cover looks really good, and we've heard a bit about the cover front and back during the podcast. Two key take-home messages for me are sort of near the end in the sort of advice section. One of the things is ask yourself the question: what is the thing that people love you for? This is what Ali says to us. If you can work out what is the thing that people love you for, actually, that is part of your magic, and you should be protecting that. So think about that and protect it. I thought that was a great message. Also, the message that your thoughts can't kill you. At the bottom line, whatever you're thinking, it can't kill you. Only your actions can do that. So control what you do. Try to control your behaviors. And ignore your thoughts if you need to. Last point, everybody has demons and little voices or big voices that tell you that you can't or you're not worthy. And I would say this book is a vaccination against those demons. Everybody has some sort of demon. You need this vaccination. Go and get this book. So you get the vaccination against your little demons or big demons, and you get a big dose of Mission Impossible action adventure thrown in.
Especially with that Panama run.
Yeah, would not recommend.
Oh my goodness, I was reading that.
0
that
stars.
Sounded, yeah, that race. So, I mean, I don't really have too much to add. I'll just say that although some of the content can be triggering, which I mean, maybe we should have put a trigger warning on the beginning of this podcast. But I think that
We'll put it on the notes.
Yeah, maybe we should write a note about that. I think the book does an important service of bringing up that there is still a stigma around mental health. I think we like to think that there isn't because, there's a lot more people speaking out about it. We have campaigns about mental health and all these things going on, but, the stigma is still there. So I guess that's an important message and important for all of us to sort of realize. Ali tells the story without sugarcoating it, so it's actually really refreshing to read, and it's a really good read. Like, she flows through basically decades of her life seamlessly, and it was mentioned during the podcast, but I mean, Alan and I also, we read the intro paragraph, and this was before we were ready to read the book because we had another one to read, and we were like, we can't wait to read this one.
I'm so glad you said that because I had no idea how to start this book, and I'm like, yes, I nailed it.
Yeah, you really did. And that was just like an eye opener for us. We were just like, okay, next, we're not reading any more intro to anything until we're ready to read the book. I'm actually quite amazed at how much Allie has achieved in her life, like just in general. And the fact that she did it while drinking so heavily for so many years, I mean, is just doubly as impressive. And it also just goes to show you that, like, you just never know what people are going through. She was probably higher functioning than most people that are sober, and she wasn't sober. So a great book. I think Allie really wants people to know that they're not alone in their struggles, and I think you nailed that really well.
So thanks.
I don't take nice things very well. I'm just like, thanks. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, let's move on. Nothing to see here.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to the publisher, Vertebrate Publishing, for providing review copies of the book. And a huge thank you to Allie for spending all the time she spent with us today, and actually a little bit past her bedtime too. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you'd like us to review in future episodes, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter or X, we are reviews_running. Please follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening to us for a while and wondering how you can help us, there are a few ways. If you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word, share the latest episode with your friends, or share your favorite episode with a running partner. Leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts if this is how you listen to the podcast, or you can rate us on Spotify out of 5 stars. But do not give us 1 star, because Liz would say, see, somebody who's giving us 1 star. Give us 5 stars and leave us a comment. We're now on a platform called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can go and see lots of little photographs and outtakes and snippets. And if you want, you can buy us a coffee on the platform, but you don't have to. You can just check in there and check out the extra stuff. That's all for Running Book Reviews. Bye for now. Didn't say bye, Liz.
Bye.